equity, and inclusion in the ecosystem. My name is Melissa Hill Dees. I am with Hands-On Connect Cloud Solutions, and I know you all are here to hear from these amazing, brilliant, beautiful, bold women. So I'm going to turn this over immediately to Emma.
Hi, I'm Jessica Murphy, and I'm starting. So I just want to welcome you to our session. And today we have a panel of amazingly distinguished individuals who I'm so lucky to be on this panel with. So I'm Jessica Murphy. I'm a multi-certified MVP, co-leader of Women in Tech Developers, co-founder of Phoenix Salesforce Saturday, co-founder of 100 Days of Trailhead, owner of East First Consulting, and also happily a member of Amplify. But before we get started, I want to acknowledge Brittany Daly. She was unable to attend at the last minute due to unforeseen circumstances, but we want to acknowledge her for her contributions, including but not limited to initiating and designing this session. And so now I'm going to turn it over to my friend, Rachel Park.
Thanks, Jessica. Next slide, Emma. Thanks, Jessica. I'm Rachel Park. I'm a Salesforce consultant, and I just want to say thank you to all of our champion sponsors. And now I want to turn it over to my amazing friend, President of Amplify, Marisa Lopez.
Thank you, Rachel. Hi, everybody. I'm Marisa Lopez. Before I introduce myself, I just want to mention, Dara, a few folks seem to be having some sound issues, if you're able to see that in the stage. So just a little housekeeping. Including Eric Dreshfield and some other folks. So I'm going to let some of our awesome nonprofit Dreamin folks help with that. I know that some people are hearing us really well, so it seems to be a mixed bag. Okay, and I am the one monitoring the stage chat, so thanks everyone for saying hi. I'm Marisa Lopez, and I am a business development professional in the nonprofit space. I've been working with nonprofit organizations to help bring them onto the amazing Salesforce platform for 12, 13 years, stopped counting a while ago. But that's what I do. I'm in sales. If anyone wants to talk about getting into sales and what that means and what that looks like, please hit me up. I'm pretty easily accessible, and I actually do respond to inquiries. Anyway, I also am, in my volunteer life, president of Amplify. I'm the board president and run that organization, which we'll talk more about. I am a mother. That's my most important job. And friend, and I forget all my own titles, so I'm just kind of giving you the soft headings. So nice to see everybody. Oh, our agenda. Today we're going to talk about, Emma's going to do this really great presentation of data and findings, because we are all data-driven people. And then we're going to get into our stories, and we're going to have a panel discussion about, you know, what advocating for diversity and inclusion in this space means to us, and why, and how we can inspire each other. And then we're going to talk about how you all can get involved. So that's our ambitious agenda for the next hour. Thanks everybody for joining. And I'm handing this over to Emma.
Yeah, you are. Thanks, Marisa. I am so honored to be here with y'all. My name is Emma BF. I am a Salesforce consultant, certified Salesforce admin. I am a leadership career coach for women in technology. And so it is my mission to inspire and empower women to step into leadership and own their power. So when y'all see this panel of incredible women today, it is truly my honor to share this space with them. Really be here and serve you all and be in service to the larger Salesforce ecosystem. So I am going to share with you what we mean by DEI surveys. Because if you don't know, there's this group called Open Source Commons Project. And it's run by an incredible team at salesforce.org, led by Judy Sohn, Jace Bryan, Corey O'Brien. I never realized their last names were so similar. And this is an all volunteer group of people who came together at what used to be an in-person event, a virtual event called the NPSP Sprint, now known as Open Source Commons Project. And this is where teams of volunteers, of community members within the Salesforce ecosystem come together because they care. They care about a product enhancement, care about community training. They care about organizing. And we all came together back in November of 2019 in Philadelphia. And Brittany Daly, who is here with us in spirit, said, let's look around the room and realize there's a huge lack of representation in the people who are here in our ecosystem. And she was charged to bring this community together and say, we get to do something about this. And so what we decided was we needed to get a baseline. We needed to get a baseline of data to really get clear on what the gaps were at these open source community sprints. And it has now grown since then into the full ecosystem. So what I'm going to walk you through today are surveys that this open source commons project, this whole volunteer group, has committed to creating, executing, and distilling what is the state of diversity, equity, inclusion in our salesforce.org community and expanding it to the Salesforce ecosystem. So we're going to talk through a survey that we put on in March 2020. And we're going to talk about in October 2020, we actually expanded into a .org partner survey. Who's excited? Who are my partners in the room? Put them in the chat. Let Marisa know. We're going to share what has worked and what's not worked, because we are mindful that we are a group of volunteers and we're really going to invite you into the process. We'll share what's next, and let's get started. We're going to start with this March 2020 open source community sprint survey. This was the first ever survey of open source community participants to include demographic information. And this is key because while Salesforce.org sends out participant surveys, we learned that they cannot ask about demographic information on their surveys. It's a huge issue because Salesforce cannot capture this information due to internal regulations. We're like, that's a problem. Maybe that's why we haven't seen this data before. So we decided to create an additional survey that was shared out to participants. And we had 68 respondents. This was right during the shutdown. It was first time that the event went virtual. And we asked 16 key questions that included graphic data. More importantly, asked people to scale the event based on inclusivity and create a space to gather qualitative information on microaggressions. So Marisa, if you can drop this link to the full data set into the chat, if people want to view it, you can also make this available. Thank you. Because we want to be open, we want to be transparent about what the data actually said, and you can get into it. But what we're going to share with you right now are just a few key findings on the demographic data and the scaling of event inclusion. And we'll talk about what that actually looked like. So here is some of the demographic data. On the left side, you'll see a racial breakdown, and on the right, you'll see a gender breakdown. These were self-identified answers. And you can see on the left, 77.9% of sprint participants were white. 8.8% were Black. Again, you can go into the full data set to see the further breakdown. We just want to call out these main trends. Another important piece on the right, you can see in the gender breakdown, is that 58.8% were women. 33.8% were men. And so this was one of our key findings, that by and large, the majority of participants at the open source commons sprint are white women, which was really interesting. And again, information that we had never seen before. This is really powerful because this created a key distinction that we presented to Salesforce, to the open source commons team. We took all of this data and collaborated and created a report that synthesized our findings and made specific recommendations to the team about what to do moving forward. As you can imagine, this synthesization is, there are not enough people of color in the room. Done. So we made specific recommendations on how the team could advance their outreach, extend the invitation, let people know this event was even happening. Because coming out of this event, people got connected. Networking opportunities were huge. Jobs come out of this event, right? Buy-in into the product is created. And so there's a huge lack of representation within the room. Again, I could go into more demographic breakdowns. You can look at the full data set in our full report, but we're just doing the highlights here. This is our data on the inclusivity experience. And I'm going to talk you through what this means. So let's start at the top left. Rank how you agree with the following. I actively participated in the sprint. We chose to break down this data by race, Black participants compared to all participants. We created this report in May of 2020, and we felt the responsibility to specifically zoom in on the Black experience. So we chose that. We made that a decision as a team. So you can see that actively participants, they ranked it from 1 to 5. And you can see that generally there were more 3s and 4s among the Black population who attended the event, but there were also a good number of 5s. So again, this is just noticing what the data is telling us. In the upper right-hand corner, you see rank how you agree with the following. I felt welcome to participate. I really want you to see here that the 5, the highest level, was actually slightly higher. So this showed us that that inclusive community, that welcome feeling was felt by participants. And this was feedback that we gave directly to the .org team, is that this is a good sign. They felt welcomed. They felt that open opportunity to engage. And that's really important. The bottom chart here is, I felt that my engagement actually impacted the results of the event. Because it's one thing to be invited to the table, but it's another to feel like your presence at the table mattered. Your voice mattered. Your voice led to impacting results. And again, you see this spread, and really, I mean, this is key. This is key data for Salesforce to know. And so we share this information because what we found is that it worked to ask about these inclusive experiences, asking people to scale their experience at these different levels so that we could really get clear of what was working and what was not working. At the open source sprint, the biggest opportunity for growth we saw is representation. Who is in the door? Who is in the event? Because once they're in the event, there is generally a positive experience. There are more 4s and 5s than there were any 3, 2s, or 1s. So that was our targeted advice to Salesforce. Get more people in the door. And that was the main findings from our report. I'm now going to pivot to our .org partner sprint survey, because as you can see, capturing this data was really powerful, and we wanted to take it a step further because we heard from partners in the ecosystem, which if you're new to the ecosystem, I just want to clarify, a partner is a consulting firm that works, or an independent contractor who works specifically with nonprofit organizations or companies who are looking to implement Salesforce. So a lot of the people on this panel are consultants. So we are partners, and partner is a designation that Salesforce gives to consultants who claim that. And here's an important point. This was another first ever survey of Salesforce.org partners, owners, and employees. Again, we were asking about demographic data and qualitative information on active DEI initiatives. Y'all, we had 158 respondents. I still don't know what's the number of the whole universe of partners, but I know 158 is a good chunk of them. Again, we're going to link to the full data set here. And I really want to shout out to our .org partners here, which included Marisa, who's on the call, Melissa Hill-Dees, who was on the call, Charisse Van Loo, Meredith over at Salesforce.org. There were a lot of people who came around this idea of, we need to get demographic data about our partner ecosystem because this matters. So again, we're going to share just a highlight of the demographic information. So again, on the left, you'll see racial breakdown, and on the right, you'll see gender breakdown. Again, y'all, the data does not lie. 68.4% of Salesforce.org partners are white. On the right, we'll see 56.3% are female. So there's a similar trend of who is in the room in partner conversations within organizations. Again, this type of data, while for some of us it may feel like, yeah, that makes sense, this data has never been collected on a scale like this. And this matters because if we do not say the number, we cannot identify the gap. And then we cannot recommend very specific initiatives to help close that gap. And what we'll be doing moving forward is creating a similar report that we did for the open source common sprint for the partner survey results to come out of it with specific recommendations to salesforce.org and to hold them accountable to say, this is the gap within the Salesforce ecosystem, within the economy. And here are our targeted recommendations on how to close that gap. I'm going to share with you what has worked and what has not worked over this process, because we want to be transparent. We are not perfect people. We are here to learn. And this is where I really want to invite your curiosity, because we want to hear from the community. We want to hear what else we could be doing. And I'll invite you to get involved right after this slide. So what has worked in our process? What has worked is creating tangible recommendations for improvement. When we created that first report coming out of the March sprint, Corey O'Brien, again, who creates these events, she says that she literally has the report saved on her computer, and she goes back to it every time she is planning a new open source common sprint and goes back to our recommendations. So these tangible recommendations for improvement are being noticed at Salesforce. That report was circulated internally within Salesforce, and we as a community have continued to show up at every sprint and said, this is what we're working on, and this is why it matters. Collaborating within the ecosystem to expand our reach has been huge. Leveraging partnerships with Amplify, with Salesforce.org's Partner Advisory Board, with different organizations within the ecosystem. We actually have an eco-wide coalition building working group that is working to bring all different organizations within the Salesforce ecosystem who focus on marginalized groups to create a coalition and to get this similar type of feedback of what's working, what's not working, what recommendations do we want to bring to Salesforce, because our key piece is accountability and transparency. As I mentioned, compiling it into a report and presenting to Salesforce, because y'all know data doesn't mean much until you actually pull some analysis out of it, until you actually take that data and translate it into specific actions. And here's what hasn't worked. Our volunteer team's capacity for further data analysis has been limited. We keep asking the question of ways to ask inclusive questions because it continues to evolve. And we got feedback from our first survey that some of our questions were not inclusive. And here's the diversity, equity, and inclusion open source comments to you. We're like, thank gosh, like you told us, because we didn't know. Y'all know this continues to evolve. And so we're always looking for ways to hold the mirror up to ourselves, right? And ask what else we can be doing better. Third is, how do we create space for specific identities while also categorizing effectively for data analysis? This has been something that our data team has struggled with, is how do you ask those questions about race and gender and ethnicity and sexuality in a way that allows for people to just identify really who they are and not everyone wants to put boxes and labels on who they are. And we want to create data analysis. We want to show trends to point out the gaps, and it's something we've struggled with. So that's a quick summary of what's worked and what hasn't worked. Now I'm going to invite y'all to get involved, because like I said, we are all volunteer. Anyone can step into this work. The more people we have talking about this, the more people who are involved, more people who have capacity to really take this data and get it synthesized and clear and think about actionable recommendations and are out there pounding the pavement, the more progress we'll see. So here's what's coming up next. We have an eco-wide, which means not just salesforce.org, but salesforce.com as well. I want to get a customer survey out there to all customers, because we've talked with people who come to our open common source events. We have partners, and now we want to hear from everyone. But we need to get our data analysis process baked so we can scale it. We want to do deeper analysis of our current data sets. We want to get clear on more intersectional experiences, not just black, white, male, female, right? Like that's the whole freaking point, is to get intersectional. And this is where we run into a capacity and time issue. So we're really looking for a deeper analysis, looking for correlations, looking for analysis of variance, which is a term I just put on this slide and I truly don't know what it means. Bless our data team. They were like, this is the thing we're doing. I'm like, cool. I'm just going to write those letters. And then create a results report of the partner survey to present to Salesforce with specific recommendations for improvement. So that's what's next. And now I want to invite you to get involved. The biggest thing right now we're asking for is we're looking for specific volunteers who would like to join the DEI Open Source Commons group. If you love research analysis and you love writing white papers and recommendations reports, please reach out to us. We have an email right in here, sfdo.dei@gmail.com. We're also looking for a core team member who can join us in our leadership role. And I'm kicking myself for not putting our members' names on here, but who makes up our open source DEI Commons team is Karen Fitton. We have Charisse Van Loo, we have Brittany Daly, we have Sarah Piltzer, we have Akash. Oh, if you don't know Akash, you get to know him. And myself. I really hope I'm not missing anyone. Your other opportunity is to attend the next open source common community sprint. So you can register here. Again, this is a free and open event for anyone to join. If you're looking to break into the nonprofit Salesforce ecosystem, if you're looking to work on product teams, if you're looking to get feedback, if you're looking to network and get involved, I invite you to join. So I believe that is it for talking about data. Let me just pause and see if, did I miss anything? Jessica, Marisa, I can see your faces, so. Okay.
I will tell you that there has just been like the chat is bubbling and there hasn't been specific questions for you that have not been answered in the chat. Charisse has been active, Corey O'Brien, lots of folks are responding to questions,
Yay.
but it's really amazing to see the dialogue and folks are conversing with each other. So it's been super active. I don't think you missed anything that we were planning on presenting, but it's really bubbling in there. So
yes, people are talking and we're doing things. Thank you, Marisa.
Yeah, everyone's on board.
Corey, I love it. All right, Marisa, yes. So Marisa, I actually think I'm gonna just pass it over to you to.
Okay, so thanks everybody. I can't see if I am on the stage, so I know Dara will let me know if it's any sort of issue. I'm backstage, but I am. Okay, thanks, Dara. We've got some presenter chats going on. Okay, again, I'm Marisa Lopez, and I thank you, Emma, for presenting that. It represents a lot of work from a lot of volunteers who are doing this on the side of their jobs and other responsibilities in their lives. So it's something to be appreciative of. And I know how hard that is to get stuff done. I also want to say that I've been pretty involved with the team, the various coalitions that put together the survey for the partners, including the Partner Advisory Subcommittee and the DEI folks and Amplify and a bunch of different entities that work together on that. And we've got data from the 158 folks, and we have a team that's analyzing it. So you just saw a little bit of that data, but I have lots of things to say about diversity and inclusion, or lack thereof, in the partner ecosystem. So I'm looking forward to having some data that we can use to make recommendations. We are now switching gears and moving into the panel discussion as part of our presentation. And so I wanted to let everybody know that we, as a group of presenters for this this particular session, welcomed Emma to be the moderator for the panel as an accomplice, an ally, and someone who we feel very comfortable with prompting this discussion about how to advocate for equity and inclusion in the ecosystem. So thanks, Emma, for fitting into this role. We really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank
Yeah.
you, Marisa. Yeah, if y'all had been in the conversation, we were like, what's going to happen on the panel? Like, I was like shying away from like being the moderator. And I think this is a conversation and a modeling of allyship, right? Because the problems that we see going on today, it's not the responsibility of oppressed people to step into this space. It is the responsibility of those of us with privilege, specifically racial privilege, to step into these spaces, to have these courageous and difficult conversations. Not in this space, because these women are amazing, but outside of this room. Because y'all know it's the people who actually are not in this session right now who get to hear this message, whose perspectives get to shift. They're the people who need to hear from the people in this room because you care. You care about the women you're seeing on screen now. Like, I want nothing more than to see Jessica Murphy run the freaking world and for us to be there cheering her on. And so I am here in this position humbly and with honor, and I stand in here as an ally, as a straight, cis, white woman with college education. I'm out here to say, like, this matters. And creating this space for these incredible women to share their stories with you matters. It takes the data and it brings it into the human experience. Because data does not speak to those emotions and feelings that are felt every single day when you are a minority in the space. And so I'm so excited to be here as your moderator. And what I'm just going to remind our speakers for is when the person is speaking, we're all going to go off video so that they're highlighted. And first, I want to bring to stage Jessica Murphy. Y'all give it up, show her love in the chat. Give love if you know Jessica, give her affirmations of love. Jessica, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for making me a part of this amazing panel.
The invitation was all I wanted. So the question for you to share is, how do you advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the Salesforce ecosystem?
Okay. So I've advocated in several ways. The first is Phoenix Salesforce Saturday. I started Phoenix Salesforce Saturday with two other people when I was brand new in the ecosystem. That means that I'd not been doing much, but I knew how to actually get into an org. And so over the years, over the 5 years of our existence, we've been career coaches and advocates for people of color, immigrants, people who didn't speak English as a first language, older workers, women, and so many people. And we've been fortunate enough to lead people to organizations like VetForce, Miravis, Pep Up Tech. And, you know, we've just mentored people from various backgrounds. A second way is that I'm on the board of Rad Women Code, and Rad Women is amazing. Put a 1 in the chat if you've been fortunate enough to receive awesome training from Rad Women. I love them so much. And the whole objective of Rad is to teach women to code. I'm also a co-founder of Women in Tech Developers, and we're a group focused on women developers in the Salesforce ecosystem. We try to feature speakers from diverse backgrounds, and especially women and women of color, because we want them to be household names in terms of being developers and architects. And then out of Women in Tech Developers, I also became the co-creator of 100 Days of Trailhead. And we have a couple of paths on 100 Days of Trailhead. One is 100 Days of Learning to encourage everyone to improve their skills and follow their career dreams. And then also there's 100 Days of App Building. And 100 Days of App Building, in all honesty, was an attempt to diversify the app exchange from my own little corner of the world. I wanted to see more women, more people of color, older workers, and other people who could build something and put it on the app exchange as a product. And then lastly, we started a YouTube channel because I wanted to put something behind my words. I wanted to show the diversity in the tech world, and that we can speak on more than soft skills as people of color, and as women, we can speak on technical subjects. And in addition, I've spoken on Shine Theory and allyship, specifically for Dreamforce for a couple of years. And I've done that because I think that we as women can be allies for each other. And I wanted to show the importance of looking past isms. And then I wrote a 3-part blog for Amplify called The Workplace at a Time of Racial Equity. And I did this because I needed to equate the killings of the things that were happening to Black people, equate it to what was happening in the workplace. And I'm so grateful to Amplify because they gave me a platform to tell the truth without being censored. So these things are so important to me. And let me tell you why. Because I, as a woman of color, have been in rooms, and I've been the only woman, the only LGBTQIA person, I've been the only Black person, and some kind of way my skills have been discounted, or someone almost made mention that I got there via a magic trick or affirmative action. And I want to point out that affirmative action has helped more white women than anyone else, that my mere presence was somehow unfair. And that's a huge assumption, because I have 3 degrees. And I want to point out that those 3 degrees happened while my mom died, my dad died, and my sister died, all while I was getting all of these degrees. And when I came into the Salesforce ecosystem, I was applying for a doctoral program and decided to go into tech. I graduated summa cum laude and went to 2 boot camps. After my first year of Salesforce, I got 5 certifications and currently I hold 13. But some kind of way, for some reason, some people cannot get past Black, or can't get past the stereotype or trope of what it means to be Black. And I want to clarify something, that allyship and being a non-racist is more than just words. It's actions. You can't just take a picture with a person of color and you suddenly become a non-racist or an ally. You need to do more. You need to say more. And for all the people of color in this who are watching me currently, put a 1 in chat if you understand what I'm saying. If you get where I'm saying, where you understand where I'm coming from, because it's more than that. We as people of color, we as LGBTQIA people, we as underserved populations, we get to say that you're an ally. And so, in addition, there are apologists, even in the greater Salesforce ecosystem, who defend situations that should be indefensible. But I am so glad that there's organizations like Amplify, like these people who are volunteering for a DEI open source commons, because these stories need to be told. We need organizations like Amplify. We need organizations like Rad Women, WIT Devs, HBCU Force, and so many others who are advocating for others. We need this. Let me clarify and let me support what Emma just said. Isms, racism, sexism, heterosexism, cissexism, ageism, blah, 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 blah. This isn't a problem of the oppressed. This is a problem of the people who hold power. And we should not thus be relegated to, oh, this is your problem. So we need all of us. So I say, and I'm going to encourage you to step up, give back, and that's how you can help us. Give back. Again, volunteer for the DEI Open Source Commons. Come and attend the Open Source Community Sprint. Join our organizations and help us create diversity. Help us create a sense of fairness and rightness, because again, I talk about this so often and I feel like I'm always bringing it back to this is a money thing, but it's not a money thing. It's just a right thing. It's the right thing. We should all have an equal chance and equal opportunity. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Jess. Put it in the chat, put a 1 in there if you felt Jessica's heart. Because I want to acknowledge you, Jessica, for the way I see you show up in every conversation as your full self, leading with your heart, opening up to us, sharing your story. It is the highest level of courage. It's the highest level of integrity. And it's the highest level of activism. So I thank you. I acknowledge you. I love you so much. And we'll have an opportunity to bring you back to the stage in a few minutes. So thank you. I now want to invite up Rachel Park. So Rachel has been having some connectivity issues today. She's lost power a couple of times. So Rachel, are you able to join us on video right now, or are we going to stay audio?
Audio is fine.
Okay. So I will just keep my face up here because otherwise there's no.
That's fine. That'll help me.
You'll just get to experience me because it's just us. It's just us. Yeah. So Rachel, same question to you. How do you advocate for diversity, equity, inclusion in the ecosystem? And actually before, I might actually invite Marisa and Jessica to come back on video if that's okay. That way you feel our energy and love.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, first of all, wow, I can't believe I have to follow Jessica. So I'm going to do my best. I'm just extremely honored to be part of this panel. And I want to also talk about how Marisa and Jessica have been so instrumental in my journey as well. So I'm Rachel Park, a Salesforce consultant, a nonprofit cloud SME, leader of Amplify LA, and a Golden Hoodie recipient. And to understand why I constantly advocate for diversity in tech, I'd like to go back to the beginning. I actually have a background in fashion design, so I'm on a tech panel, don't ask me why. And I was working as a temp in a nonprofit, and I fell into Salesforce really and became a power user. I knew I wanted to make the switch to admin, but I wasn't sure how. There was a Salesforce team, and although I knew I was a tough sell on paper, I pitched myself to the team leader anyways. There was no opening at the time, but when there was an opportunity a year later, the leader remembered me, who was a woman, and I officially became a Salesforce administrator. This is why I call myself an intentional admin. And I always say apply for the job, even if it's not listed. But soon after becoming certified, I was shockingly diagnosed with stage 2B triple negative breast cancer. I had to leave work for 2 years to go through 15 rounds of chemo, 3 surgeries, and 32 radiation treatments. I lost my certification, and afterwards, I really didn't know if I could come back. I had a lot of doubts because I don't have a traditional IT background. And when I was first learning Salesforce, there was no Trailhead or social media. So it was extremely isolating. Plus, I knew whatever work I did after cancer had to have meaning and purpose. And that's when I discovered the power of the Salesforce community, and I knew I wasn't alone. With them behind me, I worked to not only get my admin certification back, but I now have 9 certifications, including being a beta tester for the nonprofit cloud exam, and I recently passed 2 architect exams. When I was trying to come back to Salesforce after cancer, I applied for a job and didn't get it, but the interviewer was kind enough to offer me feedback as to why. I saw this as a gift and I took her up on it. I listened and I was open and receptive. She gave me honest, actionable feedback and encouraged me to apply again in a year, which I did. In the midst of that, I started my current role as a Salesforce consultant. As I re-entered the Salesforce world, I could not have fully come back without the love and support of Amplify. Shortly before Dreamforce 2017, I noticed a call out from Girlforce. Amplify was Girlforce, a Power of Us hub group before they became a nonprofit, and they were looking for website help. Thinking it was a small project, I say that because it wasn't, I reached out to Jace Bryan, who has now become my wingman in Salesforce and life. And what I didn't know at the time is they would soon become Amplify and have an entire rebrand. Dreamforce was only a few short weeks away, and I thought, surely they don't need this by then. Be careful what you wish for. During this breakfast, I heard the inspiring story of Jessica Murphy, who showed me, regardless of your background, you could have a thriving career in Salesforce. Not only did we launch the new Amplify website on that day in Salesforce Tower while I hid in the audience. They also offered to share my story during the event. As an introvert, I was still trying to find my place back at the Ohana, and I'd been comfortably staying silent in the background for months. I was nervous about telling my story. What if it made me look less capable? After discussing my jitters with my dear Salesforce friend, Laura Derby, she asked, "What would you tell me?" I responded, "Share your story. You never know who you may be helping." Exactly 4 years from the day I was diagnosed, which I truly believe was not an accident, I was honored to be the closing speaker for the Amplify at Dreamforce 2018 event. I also had asked Jessica to be there, but knew it would be tough because it was during Dreamforce. Right before I spoke, I was so happy to see her there. Later, she told me she ran across town in order to make it on time. Speaking in public for the very first time, I stood in my truth, braved honestly sharing my survivor story, and reclaimed that day. Afterwards, so many people emotionally thanked me, sharing their own personal stories of being impacted by cancer. And for that, I can never thank them enough. That same year at World Tour LA, I was honored to become a Golden Hoodie recipient, where the incredible Marisa actually flew in to see this amazing moment in my life. Aside from my fiance, all of my cheering section were incredible women Salesforce user group leaders. That representation was intentional. Remember the interviewer who did not give me the job? She now works for Salesforce. On the day I received the Golden Hoodie, she interviewed me for a Trailblazer fireside chat. As I sat across from her, I thought, what about a surreal, full circle moment this was, to be sharing my Trailblazer story at a Salesforce event, sitting there in a golden hoodie across from someone who once rejected me for a job. This is why you have to network, not only build relationships, but nurture them, because you never know where they will lead. No, there's nothing like the Salesforce Trailblazer community. It's important to become involved and engaged in it. She may not have given me a job, but we started a relationship, and she was one of the very first people to congratulate me when I officially became a Salesforce consultant. I'm also the leader of Amplify LA, and after seeing there was no Salesforce Saturday in LA, I had started the very first one. Now I have an incredible job where I get to consult with nonprofits. As a woman in STEAM, that A for arts is very important to me as a creative. I'm also a tie designer whose ties have been worn to the Emmys. During treatment, I use my sewing skills to create the Park Puff seatbelt pillow, which helps comfort patients in the car. During Rona, I've been making give one face mask and using my creativity that way. Each purchase helps donate one to those in need on the COVID-19 frontline, including medical staff, essential workers, and cancer patients in active treatment. And I'm so happy to be able to give back. Like Jessica, I've often been the only woman on the tech team. I've certainly been the only woman of color. But no, you are not alone. There is no way I could have come back to Salesforce after cancer without this inspiring community of women, especially my local Salesforce Women in Tech group. Remember, a woman gave me my first opportunity as a Salesforce administrator. Recently, I was asked to be on a women's career panel, but when I looked at the other panelists, I realized I was the only woman of color. I debated saying anything at all, and then maybe I should just be grateful for being asked. That's when I called Marisa to be my sounding board. Eventually, I responded to the organizer and asked if more diverse perspectives were going to be considered, and if not, I would be happy to open up my seat to make room for another woman of color. In the end, I'm glad I said something, and I hope they will consider this when planning for their next event. Remember, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. Sometimes not everything asked of you is for you, so be sure to send the elevator back down and spread opportunity and visibility whenever you can. There's room for everyone. We're here to empower and uplift each other, so keep going and be sure to cheer each other on, because each of our small individual wins means a big win for all of us. As the author Minda Hart says, ally is a verb. I'm sometimes asked if I want to be in a diversity role. My response is that I don't need that word in my title to fight for it. You should just be doing it.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. I mean, do y'all see these smiles? I mean, it was just me and Jessica and Marisa, like we just couldn't stop smiling. And Rachel, I want to acknowledge, because that's the power of your story. That's the power of the way you show up. the way your self-awareness is so inspiring, because you can look back and see how all of the dots connected for a purpose. There's this great quote by Steve Jobs that says something like, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. You cannot connect the dots looking forward, but you get to trust that you're heading in the right direction and that one day you'll see how the dots connected. And that's what I hear in your story, that in the moment it took resilience and trust and risk and boldness and community and support and self-love. And now that you're standing here, you look back and you're like, that was all for a reason. Like you said, to live in purpose. So thank you so much, Rachel. And in the chat, y'all, I want you to put, what is your biggest takeaway from Rachel's share? Because that's the thing, it's one note to just hear people's stories, but to then pull out how it's affecting you and what it's shifting within you is the first step to creating change. And did you notice how in both Jessica and Rachel's shares, they talked about allyship in action, beyond words. And now I'm so excited to introduce a woman who put a #1 in the chat if you feel like she's a woman in action, Miss Marisa Lopez. I'm like, girl, I want to gift you a massage because I don't know if there's a moment where you're like not doing something. And Marisa will now hold this space for you to share. How do you advocate for diversity, equity, inclusion in the Salesforce ecosystem?
Thanks, Emma. I'm gonna like push the chat over to the side for a minute because so I don't get distracted. But thanks for all the positivity, folks. That's a good question. How do I advocate? So before I actually answer that question, I just want to say that I know from my own experience that it is sometimes a privilege to be in a position where you can advocate for diversity and inclusion in the space, and especially for things that touch you personally. I definitely have not been in that place of privilege in much of my career. So I think that's really important for us to recognize that when we are able to speak up and use our voices, we absolutely have to, because there's that many people behind us that can't for whatever reason. And I think we need to keep that in mind. I take action in various ways at this point in my career. One by volunteering as the board president of Amplify. We are amplify.org. It's an organization that's been referred to a couple times in this presentation. Many of you are familiar and super involved. And for those of you who aren't, we are a nonprofit organization that seeks to empower underrepresented people to be fearless leaders in tech. That mission is really important because, frankly, tech is actually failing as far as it is concerned around bringing underrepresented people into leadership roles. There's a lot of statistics around this. If you look at the Salesforce Office of Equality stats on their webpage, you can see information about the company itself and who's in leadership and what the racial breakup is and otherwise. If you just look around in rooms that are of leaders, you could see who's in there. I've had the good fortune of being in some of those rooms, and I could just speak from personal experience. We are working on analyzing some data as volunteers, and by we, I mean someone else that's really awesome at data analytics, not me, is analyzing that data, thankfully, around who's in the partner ecosystem and what roles those folks are in. And really the idea there is to have data around, again, what those of us who have been in this space for a long time already know just from our own experience. So just to recap that, I would say tech is not succeeding in bringing more diverse voices into leadership. And I think our new administration, Biden and team, are doing a really great job of doing that on a governmental level right now, which is really fantastic. And then tech should really follow suit. It's time. We live in a multicultural democracy. So speak up if you can. Back to how I advocate for diversity and inclusion in tech. I'm in a place where I can speak up, which is fantastic. I speak at a lot of events. I'm lucky to have the time to do that. I talk to a lot of folks. I think that befriending people in the ecosystem who I want to be in my own network and helping to support them is a really important action that I've chosen to take. And I'd love to see more people take that. I am participating in different volunteer opportunities when I can. Salesforce has a partner equality subcommittee that I'm part of. There's some other activities there. And I also feel very compelled in my personal life to take action on this subject. I have a daughter who's going into a STEM related field where she's going to be part of a very, very small minority. And I do a lot to support her in her activities. So that's some of the stuff that I'm doing. That's all I had to share for that, to answer that question, Emma. So you're welcome to come back on. And yeah.
I love it. I love it. I want y'all to put in the chat if there's an action that you hear Marisa taking that you believe you can take. Go ahead and put that in the chat. Whether it's speaking at events, showing up, creating relationships with people, calling out inequity where you see it. Put one thing in the chat right now that you're like, ooh, that's something I can do. Because what I don't want this to feel like is that, well, Marisa and Jessica and Rachel, like they're all doing the big things and like, what can I do? The point of all of this is for you to feel inspiration, for you to feel connected to what one thing that one of these people are doing, right? And lands and says, oh, I can do that. I can feel confident to do that. And so I'm going to invite Jessica and Rachel back. Marisa, thank you so much for sharing. We're all going to be back. And we're going to go around one more time. And I'm just going to invite Jessica, Rachel, and Marisa to share your top 2 takeaways. What do you want people in this room to know that if they're looking how to advocate for diversity, equity, inclusion, what should they look for? And once we complete that share, we'll move into our final slide where we're going to actually give you opportunities. We're going to give you a next step. We're going to ask you to make a commitment for yourself and for the ecosystem of how you will advocate. So Jessica, I'll pass it over to you. What are the top 2 things you want people in this room to really hear?
Okay. The first one is that there are many ways to advocate and to support these populations, these individuals. One is that you can join an organization that's already doing it, like Amplify. I love Amplify. They're the reason that I'm here. They are just doing such amazing work in the community. So join one of our organizations. There's RAD, there's WitDevs, there's so many organizations. Just join one, help, support, advocate. And then the second thing I would say is make sure that your words match your actions. Do what you say you're going to do. If you say that I am an ally, be an ally. If you say that I'm going to advocate or I'm going to speak up when I see something, do it. That's what we really need.
Thank you, Jessica. Do you hear that, y'all? Get involved and align your words with your actions. Thank you, Jess. Give love to Jessica in the chat right now. She's going to see it later. It's going to be amazing. Rachel, what about you?
Yeah, I can't top those 2 points. But just to add on to Jessica's second point, yeah, be about what you say you're about. I think there was a lot of performative allyship recently. And I see Jessica's face. And that's great and all, but how are you treating the Black people in your life? How are you treating the Black people in your workplace? How are you treating the Black women in your workplace? Are you speaking up for them when it matters? So make sure that, yes, you're not only talking the talk, but walking the walk.
Thank you, Rachel. Give Rachel some love in the chat right now. Give her some love. Yes, yes, yes. Marisa.
Yeah, so my 2 points are 1, recognize what we're trying to achieve. we're trying to give everyone a voice, and we're trying to give everyone equal opportunities in this space, because this is not just an ecosystem, and it's an economy. It's a Salesforce economy. People could make good money here. They could take care of their families. They can buy a house. They can retire. You could do all kinds of things that you see the people at the top and in the middle doing, and everyone should have equal, equitable access to these opportunities. Keep that in mind with your actions, and also keep your eye on the reality. And the reality is that is not what is happening. It is not what is happening, and do not pretend like it is. Equity and equality are not marketing ideals. This is real stuff, real people, real families, okay? So that's number one. Number two, build your own network. Sure, try to get at the table, try to get at someone else's table, try to get them to make you lunch. But in the meantime, build your own network. Forget those tables. Build your own network. You really can do it. Find your people, build your own network. There is no way to describe the value of a network in a career. It is really, really huge. So those are my two pieces.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Marisa. Y'all put in the chat, give Marisa some love. Again, what's landing for you? So much love. And I'll share my two takeaways, because the beautiful position I'm in is the listening. Y'all notice how it was all about their stories. I am just here to listen and to be with them in their experience. So my two takeaways that I'm learning from this is take the risk. Take the risk to speak up, take the risk to show up, take the risk to speak out. And number two, be in integrity. Do what you say you will do. Hold people accountable to doing what they say they're going to do. If you yourself are integrity, then everyone around you will be inspired to be in integrity. And with that, we are going to complete the panel piece. You all ladies are incredible. Again, honor. I just got chills. I was like, how do you feel? I put in the chat, like, do you feel honored to just have been open and with them and in their hearts? I mean, it's incredible. And we're going to bring us back into our final piece, which is my commitment moving forward. Because now it turns to you. What are you committed to doing? How are you committing to advocating for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the Salesforce ecosystem, in the Salesforce economy, and in your life? We have 5 action steps that you can take right now. Marisa is going to walk us through the first 3 for Amplify, and then I'll hit the last 2.
Sure, and I just put these links in the chat. I'll put them in there again. This is a couple, we have an Amplify Slack channel. You're all welcome to join. Links in there for that. You can volunteer for Amplify. We're always looking for volunteers, keeping in mind that we're volunteers responding to the volunteer application. So go easy on us if we don't respond quickly. We're just doing our thing. If you text Amplify to 94069, our friends at Mowgli set up this text to donate here. So those are a couple things you can do, and I'll put those in the chat right now.
Amazing. Thank you, Marisa. And as I said earlier, you have 2 opportunities to get involved with the Open Source Community Sprint. You can attend the next one to register. It is free. It is open. You get to be there. You get to build your own table. It matters. And if you want to volunteer with our team, either as a core team member, which is a leadership role and opportunity, or to join our research analysis and white paper team, please email sfdo.dei@gmail.com. And the last piece for my commitment moving forward, I'll invite you, is to find us on Twitter, find us on LinkedIn, and reach out. Share with us your biggest takeaway. You know what? Even better, drop it in the chat right now. What are you committed to doing moving forward? Put a number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 in the chat right now. Because this only changes if you say we're going to change. Be the change you want to see. Commit to taking the risk. Commit to being in integrity. Commit to joining this coalition right now. Put it in the chat. Marisa, is that chat just being lit up right now with numbers? I hope it is.
The chat is and by numbers, she means which of these, if you put the number of what you're going to do. But yeah, okay, numbers are coming in. People are just writing out their commitments. They have their own commitments.
Yes.
People have their own ideas here.
Yes. Make it happen. And most importantly, share it with us, because we're in this Zoom room, and like, we want to feel connected to you and to the mission. So with that, I want to thank you, acknowledge you for being here today. And Jessica, I will pass it over to you for our very last piece.
And with that, thank you so much for coming. Again, thank you to all of the sponsors. And we cannot wait to see how all of you advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Lots of claps in the chat.
Great job.
know
Thank
what
you
happens
so
now.
much.
I know, we
Thanks,
don't know who ends the
everybody.
live.
We're live still.
We're still live. Hi, thanks everybody.